All right, students. So the second part of chapter 12 deals about what happened with people as they moved west. And it backs up. So we're going to start back in 1790. All right, so before 1800. There were about 4 million people living in all of the United States in 1790. That's about the population of Houston. Well, that's the old population of Houston. Who knows what it is now? And most all of these people were living east of the Appalachians. But even before the Revolution, as you well know, because the French and Indian War happened and how then the king had to draw the proclamation line, people had been wanting to move west. And with the Louisiana Purchase in place in 1803, the trickle of people moving west became a stream. I have a nice little population map down there that if you have this on some sort of device, you can make it bigger and see it better. All right. So, because I was born in Ohio, but raised in Kentucky, we must discuss Daniel Boone. He's not, I think, not going to be tested, but I do feel like I have to mention him, mostly because I was burdened with the necessity of learning about him multiple times with Kentucky history. But truly, he did contribute to opening up something called the Wilderness Road, which, again, you're not going to be tested about. But he used a Native American path, which honestly, interestingly, maybe sometime in class I'll do this. A lot of our interstates, if you actually took and laid them over the top of old Native American pathways and trailways, you would see that the interstate highway system is correlated to those too, because those were the same trails and paths that the explorers used, and so they became the roads that became the highways, which is logical enough. Anyway, he found a way through the mountains called Cumberland Gap, which is a very beautiful, beautiful place to go look at if you ever get to the Appalachian Mountains. And beyond Cumberland Gap is Kentucky and Tennessee area, and it's got great farmland. All right, so on the eve of the Revolution, Boone gathered up 30 men who were skilled frontiersmen, and he decided it was going to be their job to cut this wilderness road. So this is going on as the revolution is being fought. And Boone comes up against hard times with Native Americans. It's not an easy thing. I think I'll try to show you a little video clip about it in class because I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of his sons is tortured and killed during this period of time by the Native Americans. They don't want them there. I mean, that's why the king doesn't want them to go over there. But they use the Wilderness Road, this Wilderness Road, and you can see it down here on a little map. In 15 years between 1775 and 1790, over 100,000 people used the road because, if nothing else, you can drag wagons over it, and you can get your stuff over there to the frontier area of southern Kentucky and northern Tennessee. Okay. So how did they build these roads? Now, I don't want you to think that Boone was laying down this kind of road, because he wasn't. All he was doing was widening a Native American pathway and helping to chop down brush and trees and stuff to get it out of the way so you could bring wagons across there. But I have a picture up there at the top of what the roads looked like. They were called corduroy roads because they were made of logs laid down sideways, and you can imagine how awful and bumpy it was. So these things were called turnpikes, and people can use them for a toll. It's a toll road, okay? And the toll helps to pay for the cost of building the roads. It's the same. That's what they use the toll roads for today. So if ever you wonder why, as your parents are driving along and this thing is flashing and it's taking a picture of something that they have on their car and they're being charged for it, that's supposed to help pay for the price of constructing the road and the upkeep of the road. That's the purpose of it. Sometimes these roads are made of crushed stones, but like I said, other times it's made of logs, as you see at the top in that picture. Not very convenient, I would think, for our standards. All right, so Ohio becomes a state in 1803. That's the same year as the Louisiana Purchase. And the government builds a road to connect it to the east. And this is going to become part of a larger plan later on, as you're going to see. And the Congress approves funds for something called a national road, but it takes 5 years for the members to agree on a route, because here's why. They all want the road to go through their state. They all want the road to come from their state to go to the western areas. And so they're all lobbying. They're all fighting over where the road's going to go because they want it to go to connect their state to the West. And so, it's the same old political haggling that goes on even today. Same thing that goes on. So the road was started in Cumberland, Maryland, and went to Wheeling in present-day West Virginia. And from there continues on to Vandalia, Illinois. Okay, so you can see it on the map. And it follows the road, one of the roads that Washington had actually kind of paved out in 1754. Again, I think it's not a huge brain thing to make the leap that Native Americans had pathways and trailways that they used to move across the land. And then when white people came, they tended to use the same pathways and trailways. And so then when they started building roads, they tended to use the same pathways and trailways because they're already there. Why reinvent the wheel, so to speak? And so when Washington built this road, and I don't want you to think that he was laying down crushed rock or he was laying down a corduroy road, he was simply pushing aside vegetation and trying to make it big enough for horses and men to haul things back and forth, okay? And he didn't take it all the way to Vandalia, Illinois either. But anyway, that was the same area that Washington had helped survey and pave in 1754, which is, let's see, way, way back, French and Indian. All right. So trailing on the rivers. I've got a nice little map up there of the eastern area of the rivers that drains into the Mississippi. River travel is much easier and much more comfortable because you're not bumping along over stones and logs and things like that. And boats and river barges can carry way more cargo because you're floating it, okay? So it just makes sense. It's just physics. You can float it. It's easier. But the river travel has a couple drawbacks. First, as you can see on the map, river travel is all north and south. In fact, really, basically, it is north to south because there's no such thing as a steam engine at first, and so you cannot go against the flow of the water at first. There's no way to really do that efficiently or really at all. The problem is people need east-west travel too, and it'd be much nicer if you could just have a river to do that on, but most of the rivers don't flow east-west, at least not for a very long space of distance, as you can see on the map. And so I address on this slide what I just said. Downstream is easy, but upstream is hardly at all. In 1780s and 90s, steam engines have been put on boats, but they only can be used in quiet water. So if you're paddling around on a lake with a steam engine, you're good to go. But the steam engines cannot drive a ship upstream on something like the Ohio or the Mississippi rivers, which have pretty strong current on them. So it's a problem. Like I said, you have got an issue. You can send that stuff downstream and out the port of New Orleans through the Gulf of Mexico, put it on sailboats and sail it around Florida and back up the Atlantic coast to get it to the eastern seaboard. That's about the only way you're going to be able to ship it around, which is inconvenient at best. All right. So we have a guy who now thinks he's got an idea. In 1802, this is early on. You don't need to know Robert Lewis's name. I just put him on here because he's in your book. Robert Fulton, however, is very important. Robert Fulton is an engineer, and he puts a steam engine powerful enough to carry cargo upriver on a boat. The first voyage is on the Hudson River from New York City to Albany. This is huge. Please, you can't overestimate the enormity of the fact that now we have a boat that can go against the flow of a river, all right? Fulton is important. His steamship is called the Clermont. Now, the Clermont made the round trip up and back in 32 hours. With a sailing ship, it would have taken 4 days. Now, the implications are endless for this. We are going to cut down travel times in such a huge way and use that river system like a highway like it has not been used before. All right? So within 5 years, regular steamboat service began along the Mississippi River between New Orleans and Natchez, Mississippi. River cities like Cincinnati, Louisville, St. Louis, and Vicksburg grew up along the Mississippi and Ohio rivers. By 1850, now I realize we're jumping along in time, but by 1850, Between 1803, when he first puts it on there, and 1850, there are 700 steamboats plying the river systems of the United States, carrying both cargo and passengers now all over the eastern. And remember, we're not talking about western into the western, Louisiana Purchase, but everything that drains into the Mississippi now, we can get around fairly easily. But the problem is, we need more rivers. Oh, what to do about that? That's what we'll talk about next time.